Hello, welcome to another SonicLAB special. I'm here with Ian from Korg.
Hello.
Sporting the 50 years of Korg t-shirt there, very nice. Last year that was
Last year, yeah, but we're another year forward, so.
And you're here to show us Electribes, well, the new Electribe, but you also brought a couple of old ones with you, was that?
Yeah, well, what I wanted to do was show a little bit of the heritage, and for people that are not necessarily familiar with the Electribe history, I thought it'd be nice to sort of see them all laid out on the table side by side, so to speak.
This isn't all of them, but it's the types, right?
This is all the Electribe MX group, which are the music production products. So we started off 2002 with the EM1, which was a very simple 2-part synth, 6 drum parts, and then after that, a couple of years later, we introduced the EMX1.
This is built, this thing,
That
isn't
is built like a brick privy, as they would say. That's got now 9 parts for the drum section and 5 dedicated synth parts, and the effects are far more comprehensive than the original. So there's a lot more going on there. There's also a valve on the output, so you can make the sound as dirty, or you can just sweeten up a little bit.
It was one of the kind of driving forces behind the sound of drum and bass.
I think so, yeah. That dirty kind of overdriven sound was very much part of what Electribe MX1 was very good at doing. So yeah.
And now, of course, we've got the new Electribe.
Yeah, Electribe 2. As you can see, it's smaller format, but
metal case though.
Metal case, yeah. It looks like it's plastic, but it is a metal case, and the size of it is not proportional to the power that you've got. So it is a little bit scaled down in size to the EMX1, but there's a lot more in ways of performance and playability that you've got available. So what I thought I'd do is take you through some of the upgrades and the enhancements that we've introduced on this model. So on the surface, when you first look at it, you can see we've now got 16 pads. These are touch sensitive, so it's easier to add dynamics and so forth when you're creating your patterns.
And backlit as well.
They're backlit. They will flash as you touch them, as all good touchpads do. The other thing that's nice about this is that on the predecessors, the parts were set to either drum parts or synth parts, but on this model they can be anything, any mixture. So you're not.
So 16 pads means 16 parts.
16
right?
parts, yeah,
Right, okay.
And they're polyphonic. There's 24-note polyphony on this Electribe, which is shared across all the different parts.
Okay, so you can play a chord part on one part, but it would steal voices from.
That's right. Yeah, it dynamically allocates it. You can also set priority of the parts as well.
Okay, and is there a single oscillator per voice or per part, or is it do you have more than one oscillator per voice?
Per part, it depends on the waveform that you're selecting. If it's a drum part, then obviously it's a single oscillator. If you're using one of the synth voices, that could be 2 or 3 waveforms. It varies.
Depends on the DSP model.
That's correct, yeah.
Right, okay. So it's also got connectivity for hooking up to sync parts of the Volca range, is that right?
It uses the mini jack, and it will accept the sync pulse that the Volcas use, and you can also generate a sync pulse, and that can also be used to other analog synthesizers.
So it's also got MIDI and...
Yeah, it's got regular MIDI. The MIDI connection on this is also via a stereo mini jack,
right.
And that uses the breakout cable that you can get quite easily.
And an SD card slot.
SD card, yeah. Now the SD card is for backing up your data, importing patterns, and also the all-important Ableton export, which people are getting quite excited about as well.
That's the same thing that works on the Korg Gadget, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah.
So on Korg Gadget you can just export, build patterns, it bounces to audio and arranges the clips as you would expect them to be on tracks and in scenes in an Ableton Live format.
That's right, yeah.
Basically. Okay, so briefly talked about the synth engine. What about effects?
Well, coming back to the sort of each of the parts, on each part you've got an insert effect, so you can choose to route any part to an insert effect if you want to, and that insert effect is specific to each part, so it gives you a great deal of flexibility. You can stack that as well with the master effect, so it does make the sound very versatile. The pads, there's 16 of them for each of the parts, and the pads can behave in a number of ways. They can behave as a simple trigger, as would any other type of product like this. You can also set it so that it's chromatic, so it can be chromatic or whatever scale type that you decide that you want to set it to, or you can get it to play chords, octaves up, There's also different chord patterns as well, where you can set the different voicing of the chord.
And can you plug a MIDI keyboard in for people who be more
you can do that.
Right, okay.
And in each part will have its own unique MIDI channel, very much in the same way as the predecessor. You can also use the pads to mute the sound, solo the sounds, and you can also visually see where that part is triggered within the 16 bar.
Okay, and of course, can't forget we've got a little trackpad here.
The XY pad, the way this functions, it will do a number of things. It can be used to control the master effects, or you can use it in the same way as like our K oscillator, where you can play notes using the XY, and you can use it as a gate arpeggiator. So it makes it easy for creating music from scratch. If you're stuck for ideas, it's a great way of just finding things by accident. So.
And it's portable, isn't it? It runs on run on batteries.
It'll run on batteries. So everything these days.
You could do the gig on the bus,
you could do the gig on the bus, or you could write your tunes on the plane. It's
or in bed.
It's as simple as that, if you want. Yeah.
So pricing and availability.
Yeah, this is going to be around $329 street price.
UK pounds.
Yep, that's right. And the availability, we're expecting it to be around December time that it will be appearing in the dealers. Okay,
well, great. Thank you very much, Ian. And we've also got a treat in the form of James Pullen, who you may know as Mista Bishi, who is basically been putting entire tracks and live performances together on the Electribe, and he's been working with you on this, right?
That's right. James has been very involved in the development of the Electribe. He's been helping us with the pattern creation. So a lot of the patterns that you'll hear inside the Electribe are material that he's created for us.
So we've got James in here, James Pullen. He's also known as Mista Bishi, who that's your kind of Electribe moniker as an artist, right?
Correct, yeah.
And you create all the music purely on Electribe with that?
In the studio, I'll use all sorts of other things, but the main brain is the EMX. That's my writing interface. And when I do live, I take just the Electribe out, plug it into a sound system or DJ mixer, and that's me. That's my live set. Basically.
Wow, brave stuff. But I guess you know the Electribe series very well. I mean, you've spent a lot of time getting to know it, right?
I know the EM one and the EMX one inside out and back to front.
So what is it about Electribes? Because I mean, people are very sort of evangelistic about them, aren't they? When they get it and they work that way. What is it about them that?
It just feels like a real musical instrument.
Right.
Instrumentalists like them. People that have grown up with guitars and holding something in their hands and that they're not chained to a computer by, and they can just sit around on their sofas or wherever and play it like a real instrument and learn it. And it's also the fact that every time I seem to switch it on, I discover something new and learn something new.
So it's very deep as well.
It just always seems like you're improving, basically.
Okay. So we've got the new Korg Electribe here.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that people really want to know is the synthesis engine, and we saw you at BPM and you told us a little bit about it. Give us a little bit more of an insight into what the structure is.
Right, well, it's I told you at BPM it's derived from the King Korg. But,
so that's a virtual analog, but with like really highly specified model filters and oscillators, what have you.
It's just a very, it's kind of CPU-intensive analog modelling synth. There's a lot of data being processed, and it has all these different types of filters with it. A 303 filter, the original Electribe filter, MS-20 modelled filter, Moog, Prophet 5, Oberheim.
So raw waves. What kind of selections do we have?
Okay, we'll start here just with a basic sine, but they immediately get access to the pitch and to a character.
That sounds like a kind of wave folding type of thing going on.
That kind of a thing, yeah. I'm not sure what it's doing, but it seems to be squaring it off and then it ends up as a saw essentially. Right. But it's a sine with the wave shaping, basically.
Oh, so it's kind of what's happening with a lot of VA stuff is you get waveform and then a specific parameter to that particular waveform that's particular to the effect that
that's
it has.
It, yeah. And each one you go through, I mean, there's a sine which has its own character knob. There's a dual saw, which, I mean, that's the pitch, basically.
Between the two?
Between the two, yeah.
Right, okay.
And then dual square, again the same thing, pitch between the two. Triangle, sine, another dual sine. Octave saw. Now we're kind of detuned.
But they're an octave apart in the first place, right?
Exactly,
Okay.
yeah.
That's quite a lot of flexibility there. So standard synthesizer, pulse width. I've got to hear some pulse width. I'm a big fan of pulse width.
You want to hear PWM, yeah?
Yes, please.
Okay, well here's the pulse wave, and it is kind of a basic square.
Yeah.
And then, so
Yep.
if you wanted that Kevin Reese Saunderson kind of wobble, you just.
And there's also some sort of PCM and wavetable type stuff going on in there as well.
There's a whole load of PCMs. Yeah, once you get past all the different kinds of synth shapes, which includes
Sync
and a whole load of like Sid Chip style chip tune stuff. Ring modulation.
Wow.
It's deep. Yeah.
Is it possible to play it like a polysynth as well, so you can have?
If you want, yeah, you could put a MIDI keyboard onto it or go into keyboard mode. Oh, we've gone into PCM territory here.
Right.
But back to the synth.
Right, so yes, no problem at all. I mean, the other big deal is that there's quite a lot of modulation options, and you were saying also the way that you can stack filters up in terms of the filter of the voice plus a filter on an insert. There's quite a lot of...
Well, should we just change something up?
Yeah.
Let's just find my personal favourite noise, which is saw unison. In the little music making scene I come from, this is known as a Reese. And there's reason why it's known as that is because it's Kevin Reese Saunderson's kind of classic noise from one of his records. Now we've detuned it. Let's select a nice filter, MS-20.
Now we've got an effect.
Now we've got the internal effects on it.
So there's internal effects for each part, right?
Yeah, and
Right.
it can be different on each part. I'm just going to find the IFX filter. So now we have two filters at the same time, an MS-21. So you can get them to kind of Z-plane over the top of each other.
Right, okay.
And if you wanted to put another one over the top, you'd go to the master effects here.
You can create even more. So you have up to 3 filters chained.
You can have 3 filters at the same time, all kind of crossing over each other.
Right.
It gives a very weird mid-range kind of a sound.
So I mean, I guess the other thing about the Electribe is the fact that it can be so self-contained. So we've got lots of drum voices in there. What kind of range of sounds have you got? Because I mean, people are very specific about drum sounds, right?
They are, yeah. Well, it's obviously all one-shots.
Yeah.
Look. Yeah, well, this immediately starts off with this thing, aftertaste snare, which is like...
Process 909.
It's a classic white noise 909, which has probably been processed through a distressor and a few other load of rack stuff, and it's now on here, and the actual knee shape of it is just banging, basically. But there's also
So are these familiar sounds to people that will know the Electribe range? I mean, are there new ones that to enhance that as well?
Well, I mean, there's all the classic stuff that was on the Electribe anyway, but they all seem to have been processed slightly differently. Well, I mean, this is the kind of the 727 snare, Roland. That's on the Electribe, but it sounds different.
So one of the things that we wanted to do, and you're famous for being able to do this in a sort of live situation where you build something from scratch and, you know...
Well, I would never build something from scratch in a live situation. What I would do is I'd program my set beforehand, like during the week, kind of on my nights off or whatever. And then by the weekend, I would have several hours worth of patterns that with that my Electribe is filled up with, and I can just select. I can either go from beginning to end, or go from the beginning into a bit which I thought would work better at that particular time. So you just create a bunch of musical material and then jam on that and add to that and manipulate it in real time. Yep, here's one I just named Traveller, and it's Traveller 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So that's kind of a set of patterns that will work together.
It is, yeah, and they'll all chain up. And it will start from something without a beat, but we could also quite happily add other stuff. And then into this.
It goes to so it's effectively playing on, right?
Yeah.
That's not a vocal sample of yours, is it? That's one of the PCM, just sort of.
It is, yeah. There's a whole bank. There's a whole section of the PCM is based around little vocal snippets. So let's go to the next one. Yeah. So there's now a synth.
And that's got an evolution, an evolving sort of.
It's got some motion sequencing on it, yeah. I can change the voice if I like.
Is that the sort of thing that you would do in a live performance? Switch voices?
I would, yeah. I'd probably let this run for quite a while actually, and mute and unmute, change the voices. Next one.
It's interesting because it doesn't sound like, it sounds longer than 4 bars because of all that evolution that you're able to kind of introduce.
Well, I am actually cheating. I've got it running at 84 BPM instead of 174 BPM. So it's cut in half.
Oh, so you're getting an 8-bar pattern, right?
Yeah.
Neat trick.
Yeah. And also, but to get kind of slightly more stepping in it, I've got a delay. So it sounds like it's kind of now on 16ths or 32s.
Right.
Let's go to the next one.
So introduction of a ride and whatever, and then presumably you can just drop all the beats out and, you know.
Yeah, let's do that. And so now we're left with something quite ethereal. And if we wanted to build it up again,
presumably these patterns you could be changing all the drum voices, and there's all sorts of stuff you could do.
Yep. And the next one will just be a breakdown, I presume. Here we go.
So now you're just messing with those in real time to kind of get... The reverbs really do add a lot of beautiful sort of ambient. It seems to be very nicely suited for that kind of ambient drum and bass texture and that sort of... Yeah.
It's a pro-verb, basically. Like I said, it sounds a bit like the lexicon. It really completely swallows the sound. There's 3 of them. There's a hall, and there's a room reverb, and there's one that's just called wet, which is just 100% wet verb, and it's...
That's nice for ambiences, I'd imagine, yeah.
Yeah, this does actually does really lend itself to textural and ambient stuff, because obviously you don't have to have beats. You can just you can turn all your beats into synths or pads and have a 24-note poly synth.
Just get another Electribe and run the beats on that, right?
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, is that something that, as a performer, you've ever been tempted to do, have more than one machine, or is it too much of a handful?
It's more logistics. It's more carrying the stuff. If let's say you've got 2 gigs in one night, and you've got 2 of those big old Electribes, they're not heavy, they're just a little bit awkward. And for carry-on luggage, if you're going on a plane, you might not be able to fit them all in. But with these, they're a lot smaller. So with these, I really would love to have 2. I could even do 3. You could get 3 quite nicely in a bag. They don't weigh very much.
And then, of course, there's the cape and the light show.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. The mask, the big mouse hat or whatever.
Why not?
Why not, yeah.
That's great. So, I mean, that just gives us a flavour of what this is capable of. I mean, when you're putting those patterns together, are you having to take a lot of time to craft them, or do you find that the actual writing process is quite quick?
Quick, and the more you use it, the quicker you get as well. I'm still a novice at this. It hasn't really been out. It's only been around for a few months in this kind of form, as a finished form. So I've only just started. Give it a few years, I'll be a lot quicker.
I suppose the thing is, even though it's an Electribe, it does have a slightly different structure. It's not a kind of carbon copy of the pure Electribe way of working. It's an adaptation.
They've done an adaptation, a redesign, a reimagining. It has a different kind of a vision behind it. There's no song mode. You can't just press play and let it do its thing. You really do have to get quite involved. It only does 4 bars, so it forces you to be creative, and it will also force your sound to be very multi-layered and textured, because obviously the next 4 bars will be different to the previous one, so things get complicated.
And can you switch the master? Can you switch when you change patterns? Can everything change?
The entire value of everything completely different.
Right,
Yeah.
so you can, and of course you've got the bling lights below here that when you're playing, kind of lighten up any dark DJ booth or stage.
You can see it from quite far away, and when I've taken it out, I actually prefer to hold it because it's often quite difficult to place it. Where am I going to have it? Being all kind of hunched over like that, it's quite awkward.
So does that mean that you run it it runs on batteries then, will it?
It does, yeah, it'll run on batteries. So you just have these 2 audio cables and you can hold it in your hands. People can see the lights underneath your arm. It will kind of illuminate you downwards. And
that's an interesting approach as well. Hard to do 3 at a time though when you're doing like that. But
you just have to put one down and pick up another one. But the ultimate is to have kind of 2, your sampler and your beats and then your synth. And that will give you a very full, proper studio sound.
Wow, great. Yeah. So are you planning on working on any releases with or any kind of tracks to see the light of day with using this technology yourself?
When it comes out, I will. I'll start releasing. So it'd be unfair to release stuff now, and I'm not happy with what I've made with it now because I've only just started using it. But hopefully, as years go on, there'll be loads of material based on this. I will write records with this, so will other people, and it will hopefully shape the sound of music over the next few years.
Right. Well, James, thank you very much for talking to us.
Nice one, thanks.